see the Vallani homeworld burned in the darkness of space. Orange flames reached up from cities that had stood for thousands of years. Black smoke covered the blue sky that children once played under. Now those children were dead, killed by weapons that turned living beings into ash in seconds. Kethnal pressed his six-fingered hand against the cold metal wall of the underground bunker. His purple skin had turned pale with fear. Around him, the last members of the Vallani High Council argued in voices filled with panic. Through the thick walls, they could hear the terrible sounds of their world dying. "We must surrender," said Council Member Varseth, her voice shaking. "Maybe the Kreks will show mercy if we give them what they want." Mercy? Kethnal turned away from the wall. His large black eyes reflected the red warning lights that flashed across the bunker. The Kreks burned the children's hospitals first. They broadcast the screams across our communication networks. These creatures do not know mercy. Above them, another explosion shook the bunker. Dust fell from the ceiling like gray snow. The Kreks' war machines were getting closer. Soon, even this deep underground shelter would not protect them. Kethnal walked to the old communication device in the corner of the room. It was ancient technology, built by his grandfather's grandfather. Most Vallani had forgotten it even existed, but Kethnal remembered the stories. This machine could send messages across the galaxy, farther than any modern Vallani technology. "What are you doing?" asked Varseth. "Something that breaks every law our people have made," Kethnal said. His hands moved across the control panel. The machine hummed to life for the first time in 200 years. "I am calling for help." Help from who? The Kreks have destroyed everyone who tried to fight them. 47 worlds have fallen. No one in the galaxy can stop them. Kethnal did not answer. He began typing a message into the machine. The words appeared on a small green screen. Coordinates of their world, the name of their species, and one simple word repeated over and over in every language the Vallani had ever learned. "Help, help, help." "You are sending our location to strangers," Varseth said. "What if worse creatures find us?" "What could be worse than the Kreks?" Kethnal asked. He pressed the final button. The message shot out into space at the speed of light, carrying the desperate hope of a dying people to whoever might be listening. The signal traveled through the cold emptiness between stars. It passed dead worlds and empty space stations. For days, it flew through the darkness, growing weaker with each passing hour. Most species in the galaxy would never even notice such a faint cry for help. But humans noticed everything. Captain Dong Min was drinking coffee in his small cabin aboard the exploration ship New Seoul when the alarm sounded. He put down his cup and walked quickly to the bridge. His crew was already at their stations, staring at their screens with confused faces. "What do we have, Lieutenant Park?" Dong Min asked. "Unknown signal, sir," Park replied. "She was young but very good at her job." "It's coming from outside our territory. Way outside. The message is strange." Dong Min looked at the main screen. Numbers and symbols scrolled past in patterns he did not recognize. But there was something about the signal that made his skin feel cold. "How far outside our territory?" "About 800 light years, sir. In the direction the old probe ships, marked as empty space." "Empty space doesn't send signals," Dong Min said. "Send this to Terra Central Command. Mark it as high priority." On Earth, Admiral Bora sat in her office looking at reports from the outer colonies. Mining operations, trade disputes, requests for more ships, normal problems for a growing human civilization. Then her assistant knocked on the door. "Ma'am, we have something unusual from the exploration fleet." Bora took the datapad and read the report. At first, she was ready to dismiss it as another false alarm. Pirates sometimes sent fake distress signals to lure ships into traps. But this signal was different. It was too complex, too detailed, to be a simple trick. She called Dr. Hyun Woo, the best language expert in the Terran Federation. He arrived at her office an hour later, carrying a computer full of analysis programs. "This is incredible," he said after studying the signal for several minutes. "Whoever sent this knows mathematics at a level equal to our own. Maybe better. And look at this." He showed her a section of the message on his screen. They included mathematical proofs that would take our best scientists weeks to solve. This isn't from pirates or criminals. This is from a real civilization. "A civilization we've never met," Bo-Ra said. "A civilization that's asking for help," Bo-Ra called. Commander So-Young from the Intelligence Division. So-Young was known for her careful analysis and her ability to see patterns that others missed. When she arrived, Bo-Ra showed her everything they had learned about the signal. "What do you think?" Bo-Ra asked. So-Young studied the data for a long time before answering. "The signal came from a region we've marked as empty space, but our long-range sensors show energy readings from that area. Big energy readings, something that could power entire star fleets." "War?" Bo-Ra asked. "It looks like it. Someone is fighting a big battle out there, and whoever sent this signal is losing." Bo-Ra stood up and walked to the window of her office. Outside, she could see the lights of Terra City spreading across the continent. Millions of humans lived peaceful lives, protected by the fleet that kept watch over their borders. But now, far beyond those borders, someone was calling for help. "Ma'am?" So-Young asked. "What are your orders?" Bo-Ra thought about the first. Law of the Terran Federation. "We stand with those who cannot stand alone." It was written by the survivors of Earth's last great war, people who remembered what it felt like to face extinction. "Get me Captain Teho," she said. Captain Teho commanded the dreadnought Busan's Fury, one of the most powerful ships in the human fleet. He was known for his calm thinking and his ability to make hard decisions. When Bo-Ra explained the situation, he listened without interrupting. "You want me to take a fleet into unknown space to help aliens we've never met fight enemies we know nothing about," he said when she finished. "That's correct. How big a fleet?" "Whatever you think you need." Teho thought for a moment. "I'll take 12 ships. Enough to handle most problems, but not so many that we leave Earth undefended." "Good. How soon can you leave?" 6 hours. As Teho prepared his fleet for departure, he thought about the signal that had started all of this. Someone out there was dying. Someone had sent a message across hundreds of light years, hoping that strangers might care enough to help. Teho had fought in the border wars against the Mars colonies. He had seen what happened when good people stood by and did nothing while others suffered. The Terran Federation had been born from the promise that such things would never happen again. 6 hours later, 12 human warships disappeared into hyperspace. They carried weapons designed by a species that had turned war into a science. They were crewed by people who had learned that sometimes violence was the only way to protect the innocent. They did not know that they were about to become the most feared military force in the galaxy. They only knew that someone needed help, and humans always answered that call. Behind them, Earth continued its slow rotation around a yellow star. Ahead of them lay a battle that would change the fate of every living thing in the galaxy. The age of human expansion had begun. Captain Teho stood on the bridge of the Busan's Fury as his fleet dropped out of hyperspace. What he saw made his blood turn cold. The Villani homeworld hung in space like a broken jewel. Half the planet glowed with the orange light of fires. The other half was covered in the black smoke of destroyed cities. Around the dying world, alien ships moved like metal vultures. They were long and sharp, painted in dark colors that seemed to swallow light. These had to be the Krex vessels. Even from a distance, Teho could see they were designed to cause fear. Every line of their hulls spoke of violence and death. "Sir," called Lieutenant Ji-Hoon from the communications station, "I'm picking up multiple signals. Most are Krex military channels, but there's something else. Small ships trying to escape the planet." "Survivors," Teho said. "Can you make contact?" Working on it, sir. Tejo watched as one of the Krex ships fired a bright red beam at a group of small escape pods. The pods turned to vapor in seconds. The Krex were not just conquering the Vallani. They were making sure none survived. Contact established, Ji-hoon announced. Audio only. The translation computer is trying to make sense of their language. The bridge speakers crackled with static. Then a voice came through, speaking words that the computer slowly turned into human language. Unknown vessels, this is Captain Vex Nari of the Vallani refugee ship Dawn's Hope. Please, if you can hear this, stay away. The Krex will destroy you. As they have destroyed us, we are the last of our people. Do not let our fate become yours. Tejo picked up the microphone. Captain Vex Nari, this is Captain Tejo of the Terran Federation ship Busan's Fury. We received your distress call. We're here to help. Silence filled the communication channel for several seconds. Then Vex Nari's voice returned, filled with disbelief. Terran Federation? We do not know this name. How many ships do you have? 12. Another pause. 12 ships? The Krex have over 300 vessels in this system alone. You must flee. There is nothing you can do. Dr. Yoon-ji, the fleet's science officer, appeared at Tejo's side. She had been studying the Krex ships through long-range sensors. Her face was pale. Captain, I've been analyzing their weapon signatures and battle patterns. These aliens, they don't fight to win quickly. They fight to cause maximum suffering. Look at this. She showed him a computer screen displaying video footage from the planet's surface. Krex soldiers were herding groups of Vallani civilians into metal cages. Instead of killing them quickly, the aliens were using some kind of torture device. The screams could be heard across open communication channels. They're broadcasting it, Yoon-ji said. To all the refugee ships, they want the survivors to hear their people dying slowly. Tejo felt something cold and hard form in his chest. He had seen many battles, but this was different. This was not war. This was cruelty for the sake of cruelty. Major Kyung-soo, the fleet's marine commander, stepped forward. Sir, request permission to launch immediate assault shuttles. We can hit their ground forces before they know we're here. Hold that thought, Major. Tejo looked at the tactical display. We need more information first. We don't know how advanced their technology is. As if summoned by his words, alarms began sounding across the bridge. Contact, called the sensor operator. 3 Krex ships breaking off from the main group. They're heading straight for us. So much for staying hidden, Tejo said. All ships, battle stations. Let's see what these aliens can do. The 3 Krex ships approached in a triangle formation. They were sleek and dangerous looking, about half the size of the human ships. As they came closer, the lead ship began broadcasting a message. The voice that came through the speakers was cold and mechanical. The translation computer struggled with the alien language, but the meaning was clear. Unknown vessels, you have entered Krex space without permission. Surrender immediately or be destroyed. Your ships will be taken. Your crews will serve the Krex Empire as slaves. Resistance will result in prolonged death. Tejo looked around. His bridge. His crew was calm and ready. These were people who had trained their entire lives for moments like this. They came from a world where survival meant being ready to fight at any moment. Ji-hoon, open a channel to the Krex ships. Channel open, sir. Krex vessels, this is Captain Tejo of the Terran Federation. We are here on a humanitarian mission. Withdraw from this system immediately, and we will not engage. The Krex response came quickly. Humans! We do not know this species. It does not matter. You will submit or die. The lead Krex ship opened fire. Red energy beams shot across space toward the Busan's Fury. The ship's defensive shields absorbed the impact, but Tejo could feel the deck plates vibrate under his feet. Shields holding at 90%, reported the weapons officer. Their energy output is impressive, but not overwhelming. Return fire, Tejo ordered. All guns. The human ship's weapons were different from anything the Kreks had ever seen. Instead of energy beams, the Busan's Fury fired solid metal projectiles accelerated to incredible speeds. The kinetic bombardment system had been designed to punch through the armor of human warships, which were built to survive in the dangerous environment of Earth's solar system. The first salvo of projectiles hit the lead Krek ship in the forward section. The alien vessel's shields flared bright blue, then collapsed completely. The metal projectiles tore through the ship's hull like it was made of paper. Secondary explosions rippled along the alien vessel's length as critical systems failed. "Direct hit," announced the weapons officer. "Enemy ship is breaking apart." The remaining two Krek ships seemed to pause, as if their crews could not believe what they had just witnessed. Then they both opened fire at once, targeting different human ships. Captain Minho of the destroyer Incheon responded immediately. His ship was smaller than the Busan's Fury, but it was faster and more heavily armed. The Incheon fired a spread of guided missiles that adapted their course as they flew through space. The Kreks tried to shoot down the incoming missiles with their defensive weapons, but human missiles were designed to fight other human missiles, which meant they were very good at avoiding being destroyed. The alien defense systems, built to stop energy weapons, were useless against solid projectiles that changed direction every few seconds. Both Krek ships died in bright explosions that lit up the darkness around the Villani homeworld. On the refugee ship Dawn's Hope, Captain Vex Nari stared at her screens in amazement. 3 Krek ships had been destroyed in less than 2 minutes by weapons she did not understand. "Captain Teho," she transmitted. "What are you?" Teho looked at the remains of the Krek ships floating in space. He thought about the torture videos Dr. Ayunji had shown him. He thought about the screams they had heard from the planet's surface. "We're humans," he said, "and we don't like bullies." Across the Krek's communication network, emergency signals began to spread. For the first time in the history of their empire, Krek's ships had been destroyed by an unknown enemy. The reports seemed impossible to believe. How could 3 warships be defeated so easily? In the command center of the Krek's flagship, Admiral Tekvor read the battle reports with growing confusion. The unknown ships used weapons that made no sense. Solid projectiles instead of energy beams, missiles that refused to be shot down, shields that seemed to absorb energy attacks without being weakened. "Send a message to the homeworld," he ordered. "Tell them we need reinforcements, many reinforcements." On the bridge of the Busan's Fury, Captain Teho was making his own plans. "Ji-hoon, send a message to Admiral Bo-Ra on Earth. Tell her we've made contact with 2 alien species. One of them is committing genocide. The other is asking for our help." "What else should I tell her, sir?" Teho looked at the burning planet below. Somewhere down there, people were dying in cages while their killers laughed. The Kreks thought this was normal. They thought might made right. They were about to learn that humans had a different opinion. "Tell her we're going to need more ships." The news of the battle spread through the Krek's empire like wildfire. For the first time in their long history of conquest, Krek's ships had been destroyed by an unknown enemy. Admiral Tekvor found himself trying to explain the impossible to his superiors. "The enemy ships used solid projectiles," he reported to the Krek's high command. "Physical objects fired at extreme speeds. Our energy shields provided no protection." Solid projectiles. The voice of the Krek's emperor crackled through the communication system. "What primitive species still uses such crude weapons? They call themselves humans, my lord, and their weapons are not crude. 3 of our ships were destroyed in under 2 minutes. Silence filled the communication channel. The Krek's empire had built its power on psychological warfare. Their enemies always knew they faced certain death, which broke their will to fight. But these humans had attacked immediately, without fear or hesitation. "Send the 2nd battle fleet," the Emperor finally commanded. 200 ships should be enough to crush these primitives. Captain Minho stood in the medical bay of his ship, the Incheon, watching Dr. J1 examine pieces of wreckage from the destroyed Krex vessels. The alien metal was strange, covered with symbols that seemed to move when looked at directly. "What do you think?" Minho asked. Dr. J1 held up a fragment of Krex armor plating. "This is advanced technology, but it's designed for a specific type of warfare. Look at these energy distribution channels. Their shields are meant to absorb and redirect energy weapons. But kinetic weapons, solid objects moving at high speed, their defenses can't handle that at all. Why would they build weapons like that?" "Because every other species in the galaxy probably fights the same way," Dr. J1 said. "Energy weapons, shields, psychological warfare. The Krex have been winning for so long because they perfected this style of combat." Minho picked up another piece of wreckage. "But we fight differently. We fight like humans," Dr. J1 agreed. "We use whatever works, not what looks impressive." On the bridge of the Busan's Fury, Captain Tai Ho was learning more about the galaxy from Captain Vex Nari. The Vellani had been studying galactic civilization for centuries, and her knowledge was helping the humans understand what they had stumbled into. "The Krex Empire controls 47 star systems," Vex Nari explained through the communication link. "They have been expanding for over 300 years. No species has ever successfully resisted them." Lieutenant Na Young, the intelligence officer, leaned forward. "How do they fight their battles?" "Fear," Vex Nari said simply. "They broadcast videos of their torture devices to enemy worlds before they attack. Most species surrender without fighting. Those who resist are destroyed slowly, and the recordings are sent to other worlds as warnings." "And this works?" Tai Ho asked. "Every time. Until now." Dr. Yunji had been studying the Krex communication intercepts. "Captain, I'm seeing something interesting in their messages. The Krex are afraid." "Afraid of us?" "Yes, sir. For the first time in their history, they've encountered an enemy that didn't run away. Their psychological warfare doesn't work on humans." Tai Ho thought about this. Humans had spent thousands of years fighting wars against other humans. They had learned to use fear as a weapon, but they had also learned to fight despite being afraid. The Krex had never faced an enemy like that. "Sir," called the communications officer. "Message from Earth." Admiral Bo-Ra's face appeared on the main screen. She looked tired but determined. "Captain Tai Ho, I've read your report. The President has authorized full military response. The Terran Federation will not stand by while genocide is committed." "Thank you, ma'am. What's our status?" "I'm sending you Fleet Admiral Chang Min with the entire Third Fleet. 150 ships, including the new dreadnoughts. They'll arrive in 3 days. Tai Ho felt relief wash over him. "And our orders?" "Protect the Vellani survivors. Stop the Krex advance. Show the galaxy that the age of bullies is over." After the communication ended, Tai Ho called his senior officers to a meeting. Around the table sat the best military minds the Terran Federation could produce. They were about to plan humanity's first major battle against an alien enemy. Intelligence estimates put the Krex force at over 300 ships, Tai Ho began. "We have 12 now, with reinforcements arriving in 3 days. The odds are not good." Major Kyung-soo smiled grimly. "Sir, my Marines have been analyzing Krex combat footage. These aliens don't know how to fight." "Explain." "They rely on their weapons to cause fear. Their tactics are designed for intimidation, not effectiveness. They've been fighting scared enemies for so long they've forgotten how to fight a real war." Commander Dongwu from Intelligence added his analysis. "The Krex ships are powerful, but they're built like parade floats. Impressive to look at, but not designed for actual combat against determined enemies." Dr. J1 nodded. "Their technology is advanced but specialized. They've optimized everything for one type of warfare. Humans adapt. We use whatever works." "What about their numbers?" asked Captain Minho. "Numbers matter," Tai Ho admitted. "But so does training. So does experience. The Kreks have been beating up helpless victims for 300 years. We've been fighting each other. There's a difference. Tem Kali, a Vellani military advisor who had joined the meeting, spoke up. Captain, I must warn you. You are thinking like a civilized species. The Kreks are not civilized. They will use any tactic no matter how cruel. Ma'am, Tejo said quietly, we're from Earth. We invented those tactics. The room fell silent as the aliens present realized what that meant. Humans came from a world so violent that it had shaped them into the most effective warriors imaginable. They had learned to fight not just with weapons but with their minds. They understood strategy, tactics, and the psychology of warfare in ways that peaceful species could not. Sir, Lieutenant Na Young said, I'm detecting movement from the Kreks fleet. Long-range sensors show ships massing near the gas giant. How many ships? At least 200, sir. And more arriving every hour. Tejo looked at the tactical display. Red dots representing Kreks ships filled one side of the star system. Blue dots showing human ships seemed pitifully small in comparison. They're preparing for a major assault, Commander Dongwu observed. Good, Tejo said. Let them come. The more ships they send, the more ships we destroy. Captain Vexnari's voice came through the speakers. Captain, are you certain about this? The Kreks have never been defeated in open battle. Ma'am, Tejo replied, the Kreks have never fought humans before. On the Kreks flagship, Admiral Thek Vor studied the battle plans his staff had prepared. The attack would begin with psychological warfare broadcasts, followed by overwhelming force. The human ships would be captured if possible, destroyed if necessary. Admiral, reported his intelligence officer, we have analyzed the human weapons. They appear to be primitive kinetic devices, solid projectiles launched by magnetic acceleration. Magnetic acceleration? How crude. Yes, sir. However, they are surprisingly effective against our shield technology. Thek Vor waved a dismissive hand. Numbers will overcome their primitive weapons. Begin the attack at dawn. But as the Kreks prepared their assault, they made a critical error. They assumed that humans thought like other galactic species. They assumed that humans would fight like other galactic species. They were wrong. Captain Tejo stood on his bridge, watching the enemy fleet prepare for battle. Around him, his crew worked with calm efficiency. They had trained for this moment their entire lives. Sir, called the sensor operator, Kreks ships are moving into attack formation. All ships prepare. For battle, Tejo ordered. Remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for every peaceful species in the galaxy. The first major battle between humans and aliens was about to begin. The Kreks expected an easy victory against primitive barbarians. Instead, they were about to discover what happened when a species evolved on a death world learned to fight among the stars. The galaxy would never be the same. The Kreks Emperor, Thak Mol, had never seen anything like the human response to his empire's greatest military gathering. From his palace on the Kreks' homeworld, he watched the reports come in with growing amazement and fury. 3,000 ships? He demanded of his military advisors. You want me to send 3,000 ships to deal with 12 primitive vessels? General Kex Noth, the Empire's top military commander, stood at attention before the throne. My lord, the humans destroyed 3 of our ships with weapons we do not understand. Admiral Thek Vor requests overwhelming force to ensure victory. Overwhelming force against 12 ships, the Emperor repeated. His voice carried the cold anger that had terrorized 47 star systems. Very well. Send the Grand Fleet. Every ship we have. I want these humans crushed so completely that no species will ever dare to challenge us again. My lord, surely that is excessive. Are you questioning my judgment, General? Kex Noth fell to his knees. Never, my lord. The Grand Fleet will assemble immediately. On Earth, Fleet Admiral Chang Min stood in the command center of Terra Defense Headquarters. Around him, dozens of officers worked at computer stations, coordinating the largest military operation in human history. The screens showed ship positions across 3 star systems as the Terran war fleet assembled. "Admiral," called Captain Ye Jin from the communications center. "Latest intel from Captain Taiho's position. Krek's fleet strength now estimated at over 2,000 ships." Chang Min felt his stomach tighten. 2,000 alien warships against 200 human vessels. The odds were 10 to 1, assuming human technology was equal to Krek's technology. If it wasn't, this could be the end of humanity's expansion into space. "Sir," said Commander Dong Wu, the fleet intelligence chief, "I've been analyzing the Krek's communication intercepts. They're not just sending their local forces, they're pulling ships from across their entire empire. They're taking us seriously," Chang Min observed. "More than that, sir. They're afraid of us. The psychological profiles suggest the Krek's leadership is genuinely shocked that any species would fight back. They've built their entire military doctrine around the assumption that their enemies will surrender." Chang Min walked to the main tactical display. Red dots representing Krek's ships filled one side of the holographic star map. Blue dots showing human positions looked pitifully small in comparison. "What about our advantages?" Commander Dong Wu pulled up a comparison chart. "Our weapons are more effective against their defenses. Our ships are more maneuverable. Our crews are better trained for actual combat rather than intimidation." "And their advantages?" "Numbers. Lots of numbers." Dr. Subin, the fleet's chief science officer, joined the conversation. "Admiral, I've been studying the wreckage analysis from Captain Taiho's engagement. The Kreks use advanced technology, but it's specialized for one type of warfare: energy weapons, psychological broadcasting, mass intimidation. They've never had to adapt." "We adapt constantly," Chang Min said. "It's what humans do." "Exactly. We come from a world where adaptation meant survival. The Kreks come from a galaxy where overwhelming force meant easy victory." Chang Min thought about the first human wars in space, fought between Earth and the Mars colonies. Those conflicts had taught humanity that space warfare was three-dimensional, unpredictable, and required constant innovation. The Kreks had apparently never learned those lessons. "Sir," Captain Yejin called out. "Priority message from the Villani system." Captain Taiho's face appeared on the main screen. He looked tired but determined. "Admiral, the Kreks are moving. Massive fleet assembling near the outer planets. Sensor estimates put them at over 3,000 ships now." 3,000? Chang Min felt the blood drain from his face. "Yes, sir. And they're broadcasting something new. Not their usual intimidation. Tactics. This sounds like celebration. Put it through." The speakers filled with the harsh mechanical voice of Emperor Thakmol himself, translated by the computer systems. "Humans of the Terran Federation, you have made a grave error. You have challenged the might of the Krek's empire. For this crime, your species will be made an example. Your ships will be destroyed. Your crews will die slowly. The recordings will be broadcast across the galaxy so that no other species will ever dare to defy us again." Chang Min listened to the entire message, then looked around the command center. His officers were watching him, waiting for his response. "Communications. Open a channel to the entire fleet." "Channel open, sir." Chang Min stood straighter and spoke in the clear, calm voice that had carried him through a dozen battles. "Officers and crew of the Terran war fleet, you have heard the enemy's message. They threaten to destroy us and use our deaths to frighten the galaxy into submission. They believe that because they have more ships, they have already won." He paused, looking at the tactical display where thousands of red dots waited to destroy the small cluster of blue dots representing humanity. "They are wrong. We are not here to win an easy victory. We are here to prove that the age of tyrants is ending. Every dictator who has ever threatened innocent people, every bully who has ever used fear as a weapon, every empire that has ever believed might makes right, They all end the same way. They meet someone who refuses to be afraid. The command center was completely silent, except for the hum of computers and the distant sound of ships preparing for battle. The Kreks have forgotten something important. They've been fighting scared. Victims for so long, they've forgotten how to fight warriors. They've been winning easy battles for so long, they've forgotten what real war looks like. Chang Min touched a control on his console, opening the channel to every human ship in the fleet. We are going to remind them. In the Vellani system, Captain Taeho watched his sensor displays as the Krek's fleet finished assembling. 3,000 alien warships arranged in perfect formations, each one designed to strike fear into the hearts of their enemies. "Sir," called Lieutenant Ji-hoon, "message from the refugee ships. Captain Vex Nari wants to speak with you." The Vellani captain's voice came through the speakers, filled with resignation and sorrow. "Captain Taeho, my people are grateful for what you have tried to do, but you must retreat now. The Krek's fleet is too large. Your sacrifice will not save us." "Ma'am," Taeho replied, "with respect, you don't understand humans very well. I understand that you cannot fight 3,000. Ships with 12. You're right, we can't." Vex Nari sounded confused. "Then why do you stay?" "Because in 2 hours, we won't have 12 ships anymore. We'll have 200 ships, and the Kreks will learn what happens when someone fights back." On the Krek's flagship, Admiral Thek Vor prepared for what he expected to be the shortest battle in Imperial history. 12 human ships against 3,000 Krek's vessels. The humans would either surrender immediately or be vaporized in seconds. "Admiral," reported his sensor officer, "reading hyperspace distortions at the edge of the system. The humans are retreating?" "No, sir. Ships are arriving. Many ships." Thek Vor watched his displays in growing confusion as dozens, then hundreds, of new contacts appeared on his sensors. The human reinforcements were arriving exactly on schedule. "How many ships?" he demanded. 200 confirmed contacts, sir, all showing human energy signatures." Thek Vor stared at the tactical display. 200 ships was still far fewer than 3,000, but it was no longer the hopeless mismatch he had expected. "Begin the attack," he ordered. "Broadcast the intimidation protocols. Make them afraid." But as the Krek's fleet moved into battle formation, their sensors began detecting something that made no sense. The human ships were not running away. They were not trying to negotiate. They were arranging themselves in combat formations and powering up weapons systems. For the first time in the history of the Krek's empire, their enemies were preparing to fight. Admiral Chang Min stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Souls. "Revenge, and watch the enemy fleet approach. 3,000 ships against 200, 15-1 odds. All ships report ready for battle," announced his communications officer. "Sir," called his sensor operator, "the Kreks are broadcasting on all frequencies, some kind of psychological warfare program. Let's hear it." The bridge speakers filled with sounds of screaming and torture, mixed with mechanical voices describing the horrible deaths that awaited the human crews. Chang Min listened for a few seconds, then signaled for the broadcast to be cut off. "That's their secret weapon?" he asked. "Scary noises?" His crew was laughing. The Krek's intimidation tactics that had broken the will of 47 civilizations struck the humans as almost comical. "Sir," his weapons officer reported, "all ships armed and ready, awaiting your orders." Chang Min looked at the tactical display one last time. In a few minutes, the largest space battle in galactic history would begin. The outcome would determine whether humanity took its place among the stars or died as a warning to others. "Begin the attack," he ordered. "Show them what real warriors look like." The Battle of Vellani Prime began not with weapons, but with words. The Krek's Emperor Thak Mol opened communications to the human fleet, his voice carrying the cold authority that had conquered 47 worlds. "Humans," his translated words, echoed across space. You face the combined might of the greatest empire in galactic history. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick. Resist, and we will make your suffering last for days. Your screams will be broadcast across the galaxy as a warning to others. Fleet Admiral Chang Min stood calmly on the bridge of the Soul's Revenge. Around him, his officers waited for his response. The main screen showed the massive Krex fleet approaching in perfect formation, their ships dark and threatening against the stars. Communications, Chang Min said quietly. Open a channel to the Krex flagship. Channel open, sir. Chang Min's voice was steady and calm when he replied. Emperor Thak Mol, this is Fleet Admiral Chang Min of the Terran Federation. We have one thing to say to you. He paused, looking at the tactical display where 3,000 red dots represented the largest military force ever assembled. No. Then he gave the order that changed galactic history forever. All ships, open fire. The human fleet unleashed hell. 200 ships fired at once, their weapon systems designed by a species that had turned war into a science. Kinetic bombardment cannons launched metal projectiles at incredible speeds. Guided missiles streaked through space, their artificial intelligence systems adapting to enemy defenses in real time. Captain Subin watched from the bridge of the carrier Soul's Pride as her fighter squadrons launched into the chaos. Each small, craft carried weapons that could destroy ships 10 times their size. The pilots were young men and women who had trained their entire lives for this moment. Red Squadron, Blue Squadron, engage at will, she ordered. Show them what human pilots can do. The Krex fleet tried to respond with their traditional tactics. Energy weapons fired bright beams across space, aimed at the human ships. But human shields had been designed to fight other humans, which meant they could absorb tremendous amounts of energy. Admiral Thek Vor watched in horror as his opening salvo barely scratched the human defenses. Impossible, he muttered. Our weapons should have destroyed half their fleet. Sir, reported his tactical officer. Their defensive systems are unlike anything in our databases, and their weapons... The officer's voice trailed off as they watched human kinetic rounds tear through Krex ships like they were made of paper. The solid projectiles passed right through energy shields as if they didn't exist, smashing into hulls with devastating effect. Captain Minho of the destroyer Incheon led a charge against the Krex left flank. His ship's weapons fired continuously, each shot precisely aimed at critical systems. Krex ships that had terrorized entire star systems exploded like fireworks. Target their command ships, he ordered his weapons officer. Cut off their communications. The pole. Human missiles were a revelation to the Krex defenders. Unlike energy weapons that traveled in straight lines, the human missiles changed course constantly, avoiding defensive fire with electronic intelligence that seemed almost alive. Major Seong Min led the first Marine boarding action in human-alien warfare. His assault shuttles punched through Krex defensive fire, using armor designed to survive atmospheric entry on hostile worlds. When they latched onto enemy hulls, his Marines cut their way inside with weapons that had been tested in the bloodiest conflicts in human history. Remember your training, he told his troops as they prepared to enter the alien ship. These creatures have been bullying helpless civilians. Time to show them what happens when they pick on someone their own size. The fight inside the Krex vessel was brief and brutal. The aliens had spent centuries perfecting intimidation tactics, but they had forgotten how to fight determined enemies in close combat. Human Marines moved through the ship's corridors like a force of nature, their weapons and tactics overwhelming the confused defenders. Emperor Thak Mol watched the battle reports with growing disbelief. How could his mighty fleet be losing to such a small force? The humans fought with a combination of advanced technology and savage determination that defied all galactic norms. Send in the elite squadrons, he ordered. Deploy the fear weapons. The Krex unleashed their most devastating psychological warfare systems. Broadcasts designed to drive enemy crews insane filled communication channels. Images of torture and death played on every screen. Sounds calculated to cause panic echoed through space. The human response was laughter. Commander Wu Jin of the stealth frigate Dokdo had been waiting for this moment. While the main battle raged, his ship had crept close to the Krek's command network, using technology the aliens couldn't detect. Beginning cyber attack, he reported to Admiral Chang Min. Uploading virus into their communication systems. Human-computer warfare had been developed during conflicts where every advantage mattered. The virus Wu Jin deployed was designed to turn enemy systems against themselves. Within minutes, Krek's ships began receiving false orders. Their navigation systems failed, and their weapons started targeting their own vessels. Captain Vex Nari watched the battle from her refugee ship with growing amazement. The humans were not just winning. They were dominating. Krek's ships that had seemed invincible were breaking apart under human fire. "How is this possible?" asked her tactical officer. "They fight like—" Vex Nari paused, searching for the right words. "Like predators. Every move is calculated for maximum destruction. They don't just want to win. They want to make sure their enemy can never threaten anyone again." The turning point came when Commander Wu Jin's virus reached the Krek's flagship. Emperor Thakmol watched in horror as his own ship's weapons turned on nearby vessels. The command codes that controlled the entire fleet became scrambled. "Sir," his communications officer reported with panic in his voice, "we're receiving attack orders from our own ships. The network has been compromised." "Impossible. Our security systems are—" "Sir, look at the tactical display." Thakmol stared at the main screen. His fleet, which had entered battle in perfect formation, was now scattered across the star system. Ships fired on each other in confusion. Command vessels exploded as their own escorts mistook them for enemies. Admiral Chang Min watched the chaos with professional satisfaction. "Press the attack. Don't give them time to reorganize." Human ships swept through the confused Krek's formations like wolves among sheep. Every tactical advantage the aliens had possessed, numbers, formation, coordination, had been turned against them by human ingenuity. Captain Tae Ho of the Busan's Fury led the final assault on the Krek's command ship. His weapons targeted the I vessel's engines first, leaving it helpless in space. Then he opened a communication channel to the alien emperor. "Thakmol," he said, "this is Captain Tae Ho. Do you want to know why you lost?" The alien emperor's voice was filled with rage and confusion. "Your ships should have been destroyed. Your crews should have fled in terror. How did you resist our day?" "Fear weapons? Fear weapons?" Tae Ho almost smiled. "You mean the scary videos and torture sounds? We have something like that on Earth. We call them horror movies. Children watch them for entertainment." "Impossible. You've been fighting peaceful species for so long, you forgot what real warriors look like. You forgot that some creatures fight harder when they're afraid, not weaker." The Krek's flagship's shields failed under sustained bombardment. Secondary explosions began rippling through its hull as critical systems overloaded. "Surrender," Tae Ho offered. "Order your remaining ships to withdraw, and we'll let you live. The Krek's empire does not surrender to inferior species. Your choice." The final barrage from human weapons turned the Krek's flagship into an expanding cloud of debris. Emperor Thakmol died still believing that his empire's superiority was a law of nature. With their leader dead and their command structure destroyed, the surviving Krek ships began a panicked retreat. What had started as the largest military force in galactic history became a chaotic rout as alien crews fled in terror from the human fleet. Admiral Chang Min watched the enemy retreat with grim satisfaction. In less than 6 hours, the Krek's empire's military power had been broken. 3,000 ships had been reduced to scattered survivors running for their lives. "Sir," reported his communications officer, "we're receiving surrender signals from Krek's outposts across the system. They're asking for mercy." Chang Min thought about the videos they had seen of Krek's torture chambers. He thought about the cities burning on the Villani homeworld. Then he thought about the principles that had founded the Terran Federation. "Accept their surrenders," he ordered. But make it clear that the age of Krek's expansion is over. Any ship that threatens civilians will be destroyed without warning. Captain Vex Nari's voice came through the communication system, filled with wonder and disbelief. Admiral Changmin, this is Captain Vex Nari of the Volani refugees. How do we thank you for what you have done? Ma'am, Changmin replied. We just answered your call for help. That's what neighbors do. As human ships began rescue, operations for both Volani and Krek's survivors, a new age began in galactic history. The age of the Krek's empire was over. The age of human expansion had begun, and across the galaxy, species that had hidden in fear for centuries began to hope again. 3 months after the Battle of Volani Prime, the galaxy was a very different place. The news of humanity's victory had spread faster than the speed of light, carried by traders, refugees, and former Krek slaves who could barely believe what they had heard. Admiral Changmin stood in the observation deck of the new space station being built in orbit around the Volani homeworld. Through the transparent metal windows, he could see human and Volani workers rebuilding what the Kreks had destroyed. It was slow work, but it was hopeful work. Admiral, called Captain Jun Seo as he entered the observation deck. The diplomatic vessel Harmony has just returned from the former Krek's territories. Dr. Mi-young has some interesting reports. Dr. Mi-young was humanity's first xenodiplomat, a job that had been created 3 months ago when humans realized they would be dealing with dozens of alien species. She looked tired but excited as she approached Changmin's position. Sir, what we're seeing out there is incredible. 47 star systems that were under Krek's control are declaring independence. Species that had been enslaved for generations are asking for our help to rebuild. And the Kreks themselves? Scattered. Most of their fleet was destroyed in the battle. The survivors have broken into small groups, some trying to maintain their old ways, others asking for mercy. We've received over 200 surrender requests. Changmin nodded. What's our response? The same as always. Surrender unconditionally. Stop threatening civilians, and we'll help you rebuild. Try to restart the old empire, and we'll stop you permanently. Through the window, Changmin could see a group of Volani children playing in one of the station's gardens. 3 months ago, those children had been hiding in underground bunkers, listening to their world die. Now they were laughing and running under artificial sunlight. Sir, Captain Jun Seo said, we've also received formal requests from 17 different species asking to join the Terran Federation. 17? Yes, sir. They want human protection and human technology, but more than that, they want to be part of something that stands up to bullies. Elder Keth Nal, the Volani scientist whose distress call had started everything, approached the group. His purple skin had regained its healthy color, and his large black eyes no longer held the fear that had marked him during the battle. Admiral Changmin, he said, in accented but clear human language. I wanted to thank you again, and to tell you something that you may find interesting. What's that, Elder? We have been monitoring communications across the galaxy. Your victory has inspired something we have never seen before. Species that have hidden for centuries are coming forward. They want to form an alliance against tyranny. Dr. Mi-young pulled out a data pad and showed Changmin a star map. It's true, sir. We're receiving messages from across the galaxy. Peaceful species who want to work together to make sure nothing like the Krek's empire ever rises again. Changmin studied the map. Dozens of star systems were highlighted in green, representing species that wanted to join what they were calling the Galactic Alliance. It was more than humanity had ever dreamed of. What about the logistics? Can we protect that many worlds? We won't have to, Dr. Mi-young said. They're not asking us to be their military. They're asking us to teach them how to defend themselves, Captain Jun Seo added. Commander In-guk has been leading training missions across the former Krek's territories. He says the alien crews are learning fast. Some of them are natural fighters once they get over their fear. Changmin thought about this. The Terran Federation had never intended to become the leaders of galactic civilization. They had simply answered a call for help. But sometimes history chose its leaders based on who was willing to stand up when standing up was necessary. "Sir," called Lieutenant Dayun from the communication station. "We're receiving another deep space signal. Long range, very faint." Chang Min felt his heart skip a beat. "Another distress call?" "It appears so, sir. The translation computers are working on it now, but the pattern is similar to the original." "Villani transmission." Dr. Mi Young looked at the signal analysis on her pad. "It's coming from the outer rim, beyond even the former Krex territories, a region we haven't explored yet." "How far beyond?" "About 1,500 light-years, sir." Chang Min walked to the communication station and looked at the incoming data. The signal was weak and broken, but the mathematical patterns were unmistakable. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, another species was calling for help. "Sir," Elder Keth Nall said quietly, "you do not have to answer every call for help in the galaxy. You have done enough." Chang Min looked at the Villani elder, then at the children playing in the garden, then at the star map showing dozens of worlds that had found hope again because humans had been willing to fight. "Elder," he said, "that's where you're wrong. This is exactly what we have to do." He turned to Lieutenant Da'un. "Send a message to Earth. Tell them we need another fleet, long-range exploration and first contact." "Yes, sir. What should I tell them about the mission parameters?" Chang Min looked out at the stars, where somewhere in the darkness, another species was facing extinction and hoping that someone would care enough to help. "Tell them that humanity is in the business of answering distress calls." Captain Tae Ho entered the observation deck, now wearing the insignia of an admiral. His promotion had come with command of the new Deep Space Patrol Fleet, tasked with exploring the galaxy and responding to threats against peaceful species. "Admiral Chang Min," he said, "the Busan's Fury is ready for deep space operations. We've loaded long-range supplies and added some of the new Villani sensor technology. How long until you can depart?" 12 hours, sir." Chang Min nodded. "Take a full fleet, 15 ships. We don't know what you'll find out there." "Sir," Tae-ho said with a slight smile, "we're humans. We'll handle whatever we find." As preparations began for humanity's next mission of mercy, similar scenes played out across the galaxy. On worlds that had been enslaved for generations, former victims learned to become protectors. Species that had hidden in fear for centuries began to explore space again. Commander Dong Wu, now head of Galactic Intelligence, filed his final report on the Krex Empire. The once mighty civilization that had terrorized 47 worlds was now scattered and broken. Some former Krex leaders had accepted human help to rebuild their societies. Others had fled to the unknown regions of space. But the important thing, he wrote, is that the age of galactic empires built on fear is over. The species of this galaxy have learned that they don't have to accept tyranny. They have learned that someone will always answer the call for help. Dr. Hai Wan, now director of the Galactic Studies Institute, had cataloged over 200 different alien species that had emerged from hiding since the Krex defeat. Each one brought new knowledge, new technology, and new hope for the future. The new Galactic Council met for the first time in a space station orbiting a neutral world. Ambassador Su Jin represented humanity, sitting alongside delegates from dozens of species that had never spoken as equals before. "The first order of business," she announced, "is the creation of a mutual defense treaty. No species will ever again face extinction alone." The resolution passed unanimously. 6 months after receiving a faint distress call from across the galaxy, humanity had become the unofficial protectors of galactic civilization. It was not a role they had sought, but it was a role they accepted, with the same determination that had driven them to answer that first call for help. Admiral Tae-ho stood on the bridge of the Busan's Fury as his fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace. Ahead lay the unknown regions of the galaxy, where new threats and new friends waited to be discovered. "Sir," called Lieutenant Ji-hoon from the communications station. "We're receiving well wishes from across the Alliance. Volani ships, former Krex vessels, even some species we just made contact with." "What are they saying?" "That they're proud to have humans as their allies, that they know we'll bring peace to whatever we find out there." Taeho looked at the stars ahead, thinking about the responsibility that rested on human shoulders. They had become the species that others called when hope seemed lost. They had become the force that stood between innocence and evil. "All ships, prepare for hyperspace jump," he ordered. As the human fleet disappeared into the space between stars, carrying the promise of help to whoever needed it, the galaxy settled into a new age of peace and cooperation. But in the darkest regions of space where light from distant stars barely reached, other empires watched and planned. The Krex had been destroyed, but they were not the only predators in the galaxy. New distress calls would come. New threats would emerge, new species would cry out for help across the emptiness of space, and humanity would answer every call because that was what humans did. They stood with those who could not stand alone. They protected those who could not protect themselves. The age of the Deathworld protectors had begun.